So the first thing that I want to show you guys is the Real Talk Drive. Let me start screen sharing. And where you can really find the resources. And so in your Real Talk chapters folder, go to curriculum. And then there are two folders that are important. Templates will have your roundtable discussion template. And what's new is this also a roundtable discussion presentation template. And I started filling it out for the climate change, but essentially it shows your current event slide in the old Real Talk format. Kind of, you can help plan you out how you want to do your lesson. We recommend a background video of some sort, some lesson details, the pre-reading summaries, and then going into a discussion, and then as a reminder, what the discussion norms are. And so you guys are welcome to use this presentation, especially if you're going to be running your discussions via Zoom, and that might be helpful as an intro. The next really helpful folder is sample discussions. And we have a complete sample discussion on Russian interference in the US elections. And so if you have club members who are interested in technology and the intersection between government and accountability, this may be a great option. I'm gonna let you guys go through it with your own time. There's a presentation created as well as a pre-reading pre-created for this as well. I would note that this only has 2 articles because that was the format we're doing before. But right now, when you guys are creating your roundtables, we're recommending 2+ articles. We're recommending probably 3 if possible, because we want to start perpetuating the notion that there's more than 2 perspectives to every issue. There's 3 or more always. And something that's interesting about this sample discussion is that we also created a handout to go with the discussion. And so you have key terms, kind of a lesson plan, as well as a summary of what will be on the slides and discussion questions. And so this is definitely optional, but if you want to give your club members more materials to look at so that they have a better sense of the plan, that's also always an option. Okay, so first I want to give you guys a chance to ask any questions you may have about the roundtable discussion template. I'm wondering, is there a way I can, okay. How do I chat? Oh, got it. Here is the roundtable discussion template. Do you guys have any questions? No? Okay. And because we're such a small group, you guys can kind of just like unmute yourselves and ask a question whenever you want to. I'm just going to start going through the climate change denier template that I was working on. So I started off this discussion a couple of days ago, and I was like, okay, I want to create some discussion around how we can deal with climate change deniers. Do we validate them? Do we give them a platform? What is it? And so that was the idea I had in mind. And the idea is that you start with some kind of a big theme, and hopefully as you do background research, you kind of narrow in. So my second step was, how can I get a lot of information on this? And luckily I took a seminar on this at a camp I did earlier this summer called Yale Young Global Scholars, and I had a lot of resources from there. But I also started to look in, and something that we didn't mention explicitly in our template is that it's a great idea to use videos as well, especially for topics that you may not already know an opinion on. So I actually watched this Jubilee video on a series of 8 different climate change skeptics and why they believed climate change was not real.
Hey guys, real quick before the video, this topic was highly requested, but it's also very
but essentially it goes through each person, and we can see kind of from their perspective why they don't believe in climate change.
I see climate change arguments and activists more as climate alarmists.
I think I'm quite educated on this subject. I can't imagine anything that would change my mind.
Well, I just wanted to be here just to possibly inform people about a more constitutional aspect of this whole argument.
I am a healthy skeptic, not just of climate change, but in general of a lot of things.
I think that people are naturally alarmists, and they make things way worse than they actually are.
I think the benefits of fossil fuel use far outweigh the side effects, including our influence on the climate.
So that's a quick example of how you can use a video to show some perspectives that may otherwise not be in the conversation. Other than that, the thing to remember with your research is that make sure actually the bulk of your work should be research. What will end up happening is that you'll look at 10, 15 articles. You probably will only end up really using 3, but it's important for you to have that background knowledge as a facilitator. So I looked at some New York Times articles. I also made sure to look at some California government articles, some things that are from a government website to see that perspective. And I did write neutral here because it's a government, but it's always important to note that any site has some type of leaning. So generally, because California leans Democratic, I would say that even that article is also pretty liberal. And so from there, I made sure I got some conservative viewpoints as well in there. And I also found videos pretty helpful because sometimes articles versus videos, specifically on Fox News, had different things. And if you guys are interested later, this is a really funny video where Tucker, who is like the host of the main Fox News shows, argues with Bill Nye Live, which I thought was really funny, but very exciting. Anyway, so after that, I found 3 sources that I thought were probably the most important and showed a breadth of perspective. And so the first one was that Jubilee video. And I thought that did a good job of showing what are the different ways that people argue against climate change and what could climate deniers look like. The second article was from the California government, and it made a comparison between the ways in which climate deniers are funded in terms of big businesses, and that in comparison to the tobacco industry, and how back then, when a lot of people were claiming that there are no bad health effects for tobacco, that was obviously funded with the goal of prioritizing and promoting tobacco companies, and how that may be similarly helping coal companies today. And the last article is an interview with Senator Ted Cruz. And it's actually something I found later. And it was really interesting to me because I thought he actually makes a great argument for why it's important that we have deniers in every aspect of science, and how maybe climate deniers is actually a effective and important response to what people see as climate alarmists who are exaggerating the impact of climate change for possibly their own political motives. So after that, and I think that as you start to read this article, this discussion ideas come into your head, I started writing down some discussion questions. And the first one we recommend starting with is, what are 3 to 5 different perspectives that someone could have on this topic? And so that's kind of outlined in this question here. But from there, our advice is keep open-ended questions that you're interested in, and questions that are not leading. And from there, we really think that although you're going to have this outline of questions, let the discussion flow, and let new questions come up and have that be your guide, and use this as just kind of a framing in case you need it. And after that is just plan your meeting. So take what you've created, create, number 1, a pre-reading document. What I did for this one was, this is the thing that you would send to your chapter members before the meeting to make sure that they got all the information. I linked the video, and I specified only watch the first 8 minutes. Ideally, you don't want the prep taking people more than 20 minutes. That probably is a disincentive to do it. Then I linked the article, but I also just put a shortened version on the document. I think people are much more likely to read it when there's less clicks. Like think of the click to information ratio. Less clicks equals more reading. That's what I like to think of that. And then I also put a abridged version of the NPR article, and a good ballpark is 1 to 2 pages max for articles. And for videos, 5 to 10 minutes is all you should watch of a video. So that was step 2. You kind of have to create your document. And then the last step in creating your roundtable presentation will just be moving to your presentation and starting to create that, and filling that out. And you can use a template as well. And from there, we have some other facilitation guidelines on the Roundtable template, but other than that, that's it. Are there any questions? Yeah, Chris, go ahead.
I suppose, well, this may be an idiotic or asinine question, but I'm just wondering, what do we do if, for example, during a thing, there are 2 people in a very heated debate? Like, what are some ways to kind of de-escalate that? Or maybe should we encourage that somehow? That's something that's not rude, but it's heated. What is Real Talk's stance on that?
So I think that there are 2 aspects to that situation. So the one is that we want heated conversation, and the type of conversation, when we say real talk, we don't mean not disagreeing, we mean disagreeing, but doing so respectfully. And so when you say heated, there's a different situation that can come up. If it's accusatory, then we want to promote people using the language of, I guess, separating their opinions from the person and talking about evidence, logistics, and fact. And if you can bring that up, that's great. the other aspect of a situation like this is that if there's two people taking over the conversation, what do you do with the rest of the club who are so interested? And so I say, if you think the discussion is both respectful and is pushing into being kind of productive, I would let it go for a little bit and then move on. You always have the option with, I'm assuming you guys are probably going to be doing the Zoom meetings. You could put those people in a breakout room and have them kind of duke it out and then come back if they really wanted to. That's always an option. But the third is that you take what they're arguing about, kind of take the crux of it, and then pose it as a question to the whole club. So, for example, I could see a discussion coming up with the climate deniers one, and maybe two people get heated about how can we even have a platform for climate deniers? They shouldn't even be allowed to be like voice their opinions on news sources because it makes it seem like they're valid. Then the other person could be arguing, but that's censorship in saying that just because they're not necessarily factually correct, their opinion still deserves a platform for the sake of people understanding what others believe. And then I can imagine you seeing that conversation and posing a question to the whole club about what do you think it means to have a media platform that's official, like the New York Times, allow an opinion piece on from a climate denier? What would that impact be, and should that be allowed? Is that helpful?
Very much so. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, go ahead, Max.
Yeah, so